me welcome you to this, the first of many budgets that I hope to present to you, the residents of the city of Plainfield. I want to thank all of you for coming out here tonight on this, the first day of spring, and for taking the time to engage in the important matters in Plainfield. I need to hear from you about this budget and about all your ideas and concerns for Plainfield. But before I get into more of my remarks, I want to first take this opportunity to introduce to all of you some of the members of my cabinet, who some of you are meeting for the first time. And so I will start from my right and introduce you to Mr. Ron West, who's the Director of Finance for the City of Plainfield. And to his left is Mr. Rick Smiley, who is the City Administrator. Then over here is Mr. John Stewart. He is the Chief of Staff. And you have Mr. Carl Riley, who's the Director of Police as well as the Director of Public Affairs and Safety. Mr. Carl Riley. And next to him you have Mr. Carlos Sanchez, who is the Deputy City Administrator in charge of Economic Development. And also sitting in the audience is our Public Information person. Her name is Becky Perkins, and she's the person that is responsible for communication. This budget that we are presenting this evening is the first on-time budget in the last 8 or so years. And I would say that previous failures to meet deadlines resulted in frequent delays and numerous emergency appropriations. And that is something that we want to put a lid on that. We want to run the city like a business, and so we want to improve processes and make sure that we do what is right by you. We are fulfilling our promise to begin the process of putting Plainfield's fiscal house in order. It will not be done in 1 year, but we must begin the process now. It is important. It cannot be business as usual. This is a balanced budget that invests in Plainfield's future, because for too long we have suffered as a community because of a negative image. We must create a new future for Plainfield and for all of us who live here. The budget recognizes our most important priorities. Our children are our most important investments, and we've got to do right by them. Public safety is critically important to the city of Plainfield. If we don't have a safe community, it affects all of us, and it keeps people away. And we want people to come into the city of Plainfield. We want folks to invest their dollars. Next, we are going to be focusing on rebranding and re-imaging this city of Plainfield. For the 12 months of my campaign, my theme, or one of my themes, was rebranding, re-imaging, and basically creating a new Plainfield. And that's what we will be focusing on, and there are resources in this budget to help us with the rebranding and re-imaging of the city of Plainfield. We couldn't deliver a decrease in the tax rate this year, but we have been able to make the increase a bit smaller than it might have been. There's no quick fix for the decline in commercial and industrial rentables. Until we invest to reverse this trend, we will not see real changes here in the city or real relief for you, the property owners of the city. I want to commend our Director of Finance, Mr. Ron West, and our CFO, Mr. Al Steinberg, who have done excellent work on this budget. And so, Al is not here this evening, Mr. Al Steinberg, because he's ill. But as most of you know, Plainfield was without a CFO since 2007. And I pledge that I would bring a CFO to the city of Plainfield on day one. I'm talking about the Chief Financial Officer. I didn't get that CFO on day one, but by January 27th, we had a CFO who was one of the most qualified in the state of New Jersey. And so I have every confidence that we will begin to turn our finances around and we will put our finance house in order. And so without any further ado, I want to turn this budget presentation over to Mr. Romulus. I should tell you, before I do that this is the first time we're presenting the budget in this fashion. And so I invited the council to move its meeting to the senior center, because this is more conducive to a presentation of this kind. And I felt it would have been a better idea to have the budget presentation at 7, it will end at 8, and the council will start its meeting, and you will all be here. But the council decided they didn't want to do that. So that is the reason why this presentation is being done here, and the council's meeting is at the municipal court. So I wanted to explain that to you. The invitation was extended for the meeting of the council to be moved here. It would have made a lot of sense, and everyone would have been a part of this process, and the council would have been able to hear the same things that you're going to hear this evening. So, with that, I will turn the microphone over to Mr. Ron West, who will walk you through the calendar year 2014 budget.
Thank you, Mayor Mapp. I'm going to stand up here and try to work through technology as well as speak to you about the 2014 budget. Can you hear me now? Yeah. All right. What I was saying is that I was going to be working the technology as well as speaking to you, so there may be a hiccup or two along the way, but I hope to get through the message and make it understandable to each and every one of you. Should you feel you need to ask a question, feel free to stop me at any point in time and do that. But this is the introduction of the 2014 budget, and we are at a crossroads. Just as the mayor said, we're at a point in time where we need to do something, and we have to make a decision. Do we move forward, do we stand still, or do we continue to fall backwards? And I would tell you that what we are proposing is to invest in Plainfield. What do I mean by that? Still work? We want everyone, citizens, businesses, homeowners, to really support this budget, because what we're trying to do is set the stage for a multi-year effort to change things around. What you're going to see shortly is that there have been trends that have not been positive, and we need to reverse them. So what do we need to do going forward? Economic and community development. We've got to reverse the lost trend in rateables, which I'll go into more detail shortly. We need property tax stabilization. And I've heard in years past from the seniors that that was something that they thought was first and foremost. Taxes need to become stabilized. We need to rebrand and re-image Plainfield. We've got to make a concerted effort to change how others view Plainfield and how Plainfield views itself. And we have to build a substantial surplus. Surplus is a term that represents what I'll call profit or excess money, but money that we need to have for rainy days. And we need to do something to build that up. I spoke a second ago about rateables. And don't worry about looking at all these numbers. I'll try to summarize for you what it really says. And what it says is that since 2010, we've seen rateables go down by $30 million. And at this point in time, homeowners bear 82% of the burden of the taxes in this city. We've got to reverse that. And I don't know if you've seen a number like this before, and if you spend time really looking at each of the line items, basically everything's gone down, in terms of ratables. Whether you're talking homeowners, industrial, commercial, to the tune again of $30 million. And that's a trend we've got to reverse. What this next chart reflects, again, in bar chart form, it just reemphasizes the fact that the homeowner bears the burden. Over the last 5 years, all of the other aspects of the ratables in town have remained pretty stable. But you can see that the homeowner's piece keeps growing. And so you wonder why you've had a tax increase? Well, that's because we've seen the loss in ratables, with no new businesses coming in, not being offset by anything. And who's to pay that? The homeowner. So again, what are some of our financial objectives as we move into 2014 and beyond? We want to reverse the loss trend in ratables. One of the things we're going to be doing is auctioning foreclosed properties, to the tune of $2.7 million at this point in time is what's on the, well, I shouldn't say what's on the books. There's a bigger number on the books, but what's real is $2.7 million. We'll be doing some other things to clean up the books so that it reflects really what's out there. We're also going to sell city-owned tax liens. City owns better than 90 tax liens. We need to move those out to the marketplace and hopefully get people, to take them off our hands and pay taxes. So what's our roadmap when we look at 2014 and beyond? One of the things we're going to have to do is increase our bond rating. I don't know how many of you know anything about bonds and the financial market, but we have what's known as a Baa1 rating. What that basically says is that if we were to go to the market to bond, we're still investment grade, but we're on the edge. And we need to do something to improve that. Because the lower your bond rating, the higher the interest rate you pay on your debt. We're going to be analyzing capital ordinances and fund capital needs by identifying unspent money. There's an action taking place tonight, which is going to cancel out, about $655,000 of unspent capital ordinances from years past. And what are we going to do? Well, one of the things is primarily fix some of the major roads that were damaged during the course of this winter. But right now we're going to cancel. Next month we'll come forward with what we're going to do with the money. We're going to be looking at all pilot agreements, and what that stands for is payment in lieu of taxes. We've got a number of properties in town who have those kinds of arrangements. And what we want to do is ensure that everybody's paying their fair share, and they're honoring, the agreements that were signed years ago. And going forward, if someone wants a pilot agreement, there will be a minimum level that they will have to, pay to the city, in order to get a pilot agreement. We've got to do a better job of getting grants that are available to the city and other municipalities. In 2013, we raised close to $2.8 million in grants, but we think that we can do even better than that. And there's a need to do that, because every dollar that we raise via grants is one less dollar that we have to pay. We've got to have continued improvement in the tax office. Collection rate in 2012 was 93.84%. Last year, 96.32%, which was worth $1 million to us. But what happens when you don't collect 100% of your taxes is something called reserve for uncollected taxes. And we've got $3.7 million in the budget this year as a reserve for uncollected taxes because we don't collect them all. So we've got to do a better job of enforcing things because, again, if we were collecting at 100%, that would be $3.7 million less that we as taxpayers would have to pay. Again, I'm going to repeat the fact that we need to stabilize the tax rate. We've got 7 union contracts to settle. And what that'll do for us once they're settled is give us a handle on what our future costs will be at least out a few years, with regard to future budgets. We want to address all audit recommendations. This city has been cited by the auditors for many years now, with somewhere in the average of 19 to 22 findings and or recommendations each and every year, many of which continue to repeat. We want to stop that. We are now trying to get our financial house in order so that those kinds of recommendations and or management issues go away. We want to look at things like what I labeled as enterprise agreements that tie to maintenance and all. We want to make sure that we leverage all the business that we do in terms of buying equipment, whether it be Xerox, Konica, PCs. Are we getting the best bang for the buck? We spend a lot of money. So we've got initiatives in place to try to make it even better. We want to deploy technology solutions, and there are a variety of reasons for doing that. First and foremost, we want to make sure that every employee has the tools they need to do the most efficient and effective job that they can. We also want to make sure that when it comes to decision making, we're getting the best possible information to make the choices that we need to make. So we want to do a number of things that have an impact both internally at City Hall, as well as have an external exposure to each of you as users. What do I mean by that? We'll have more and more ability for you to do things online, for those of you that have computer access. We also want to look at something like the Human Resources Information System. And what do we want to do with that? We want to empower employees to have less of a need to go up to personnel to manage their personnel business. They can go online and make changes on their own, whether it's beneficiary changes, deductions. We want to give them that kind of ability to do that. So there'll be an RFP hopefully going out in the next few weeks that allow us to do that. And there'll be something going out as well with regard to some major technology initiatives, that people like the enforcement groups have been looking for a number of years. We just have to find a little time to draft those specifications and then move on. You're going to see 3 slides come up in pie chart form. You don't have to pay a whole lot of attention to them, except know that you heard a commitment to public safety. In this slide, public safety is worth 35% of the city's budget. And then there's insurance, deferred charges, and statutory expenses, which I'll go on and explain in a second. But when you take just those two, we're better than 50% of the city's budget. This next slide is just going to break out the statutory piece and the insurance piece. Within the insurance slide, health insurance constitutes 14% of the city's budget. The pension plans, which are HERS and I say PFRS, constitute another 9%. Public safety, again, remains at 35%. If you start allocating the money, you'll see that the commitment to public safety is 50% of our budget. Administrative costs, 14%. Social services and recreation, 5%. Reserve fund collected taxes hasn't changed, it's 5% of our budget. So when we talk about marshaling resources and all, in order to pay for these things, we've got to do a better job of managing our financials. Let me just catch up for a second. What I failed to do on the other slide was at least tell you what the budget is. $75 million. It's up 1.4% from last year. So that's the introduced budget. Now to tell you what it means to you. You've probably heard, if you've been to enough of these meetings over the years, that the average home is assessed at $113,000. The tax increase, should this budget go forward as is, be in the area of $129.37 per home. If we did nothing, meaning no increases in the budget, each home would have seen an increase of $25.99 due to the loss of ratables. The 2013 increase was $166.06. So as the mayor indicated, this increase is substantially less than last year's, but it is an increase. But we think it's a worthy increase, if we're going to try to rebrand, reimage, and strengthen the financial aspects of this city. There are a number of new positions in this budget that I wanted you to see. Some of them are carryover positions, but in order to make a difference, we've got to bring in some skills that haven't been available in the city and really pay attention to getting things done. So you'll see things like the chief of staff. We've got the deputy city administrator for economic development, who's on the hook for a lot of things. Can't do it all overnight, but again, we're pushing the fact that economic development is increasingly important in the city. We're bringing in a superintendent of recreation again. The mayor talked about a commitment to kids, so that's one of the things that's going to be emphasized. We're going to bring that superintendent back. We're looking at strengthening the planning office. Community relations and social services has been understaffed for a few years. That happens to be an office that is extremely busy responding to the needs of our very low-income residents in town. And we need to really figure out what role we want that organization to play going forward, and how do we make a difference in the lives of those who are struggling even more than most. One of the other things well, this is only talking positions, so the next slide I'll cover a few other things. There are some carryover positions that were inherited to the tune of $152,000. But again, this is what we're looking at in the way of new positions in the budget. And again, some of them have existed in the past, but last year they really weren't funded, and we've got to do something to reverse the trend. So now this next slide really talks about where were the major changes. Talked about the fact that we're looking to settle the contract, so there's $350,000 in the budget for salary increases. Insurance went up over $600,000. When you look at it, we talked about a commitment to the youth in town. We are doubling the summer youth program. So we're going to be doubling the number of jobs that have been available in previous years without counting the Union County money. This is a commitment that the city's making to make sure as many of our youth as we can afford get hired this summer. And/or we have intern programs for college students. We're also reaching out to a number of other entities, asking them if they will take on, working with us and putting jobs in place for our youth. And so when you look at it, we've got $2.5 million in increases for a variety of reasons. But again, this is part of investing in Plainfield. We happen to believe that this is a reasonable budget. It's put together to try to make a difference, in the city. And again, it's the first of many changes that need to take place if we're going to see Plainfield, draw other entities that are willing to invest money in town. We will do all that we can to strengthen the financial house, but we're going to need help with regard to being an acceptable community for people to want to do business in, which means we all have to be business friendly. We've got to believe that Plainfield is a place for people to live and breathe in. And so, as a team, we all need to work together to make sure that these changes that we're introducing from a budget perspective do indeed make a difference for the city. Now, I will help you understand how we're able to make this budget work this year. One of the things I talked about was using surplus money. And what I'm showing here is a history of the surplus that we've had. 2009 was almost 4 million. Last year, 5.6 million. We have used 4.9 million of that in this year's budget. So one of the things we're working on as we speak, though this budget isn't even done, is trying to generate surplus for next year. And again, we'll end by just showing a history of the tax collection rate. It's varied, but 2013 was a very good year. And Dave Marshall, who's not here, is looking to do better. And again, we're going to be managing lots of things to try to improve the tax collection rate so that we can lower the reserve for uncollected taxes. And that's just one leg that we're looking at in terms of strengthening, the financials of this city. With that, I'd like to stop and open up to any questions before we have to go to the city council meeting.
I'm right there. As a taxpayer, if your house is assessed at more than what you have up there, naturally you have to pay a higher tax.
That's correct. That's correct. To figure it out, taxes went up 11 cents per 100. So if you need help with the math, stop by and see me. I'll do it with you. But it's 11 cents per $100 of assessed value. 11.4 to be exact.
I have a question. The $1 million for the increase in employees, was that taken from the surplus?
I'll say yes to that. It doesn't work quite directly like that, but yes, we used the surplus to help balance the budget. Yeah, and that's part of the investing in Plainfield.
I think the results, I like the presentation, very good. I applaud you for laying it out as clearly as you have. I know the results of some of the increases in people working directly with the administration that are reflected in this budget, the $900,000, will be water under the bridge if there are, real results seen down the road. But I also think that your number, for reasons I've explained to you in the past, for solid waste management is deceptively small.
I don't know if all of you followed that, but
And that was the slice of pie that was closest to me.
all I can tell you is that we are actively looking at the PMUA agreement to understand that. But remember, when you start going through the agreement and the formulas, you may win, you may lose. So we're trying to find out what the formulas would have resulted in terms of how much the city's burden should have been versus the PMUA's. But remember, ultimately, the deficiency agreement with the PMUA says that this city is liable for any debt not paid for the PMUA. So we're looking.
This percentage that you have right here, that's the percentage of the people that have paid their taxes.
Yes,
So the majority of the people are paying their taxes, who's going 90-something.
that's correct.
Majority. Before we were saying how, it unbalanced you so much when people weren't paying their taxes.
That's right. This does say that the majority do pay.
Are paying their taxes.
Kill that.
You don't need it?
I think everybody, what I'll do is repeat them if people don't hear. Yes?
I'm not sure if this question is appropriate right now or not, but I'm concerned about the flood insurance for the city of Plainfield. I have lived in my home 40 years, and the only water in my basement is what I put in. But yet I'm paying $2,000 a year in flood insurance. What is the city going to do about that?
I will try to first answer that, and then I will look to some of the experts, should I leave something out, because I pay flood insurance too. And what you may have gotten a request, for an elevation map and everything else that came out with your renewal for your flood insurance. If not, it's coming. One of the things we are trying to do with planning is see what we can do about revisiting the flood areas in the city, and if it works out, challenge some of the areas that have been deemed to be in flood areas. But we do understand that it's a real burden, on many households, and we're gonna see what we can do, but there's nothing definitive right now. But I will look to my left and right to see if anybody wants to add to it, but it is something we are cognizant of and plan on seeing what we can do to provide relief. Nationally, there's also been an effort to provide some form of relief, because some of those who have suffered real damage from the floods are now paying substantially more than $2,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000.
I know how important this is to you and to all of those in the city that are paying exorbitant amounts for flood insurance. And many of you don't need that flood insurance, but you're required to pay anyway. And I know that the previous administration had embarked on a project that would seek to provide some relief to you as homeowners that are paying that insurance. And I have asked my administration to provide me with a status on what has been done so far, and it is my goal to focus on doing what else needs to be done in order to address this issue. It is not enough for us to say to you that we're working on it, because that has been said to you too many times for far too long. So I will make sure that I hold my cabinet members accountable, and that we get a status update on exactly where we are, what else needs to be done, so that we can get to where we need to be to provide you with the relief that you need.
Thank you.
I hope that when you're discussing the flood insurance issue, that you take into consideration that all along our borders with North Plainfield, the major problem we had in 1973, which caused us to pay these high rates of insurance, was remedied when they did all of the repair work that they did with their sewer system, when that water came down off the mountain.
Yes.
Let them pay the bill. And they do the house, 478, after what's the one for the whole new building, all the water coming down to all the trees, all the water coming down to us. They ain't right. But we get them the lake out and make it deeper, and then we carry away the water coming here. Let them pay the bill.
To repeat what I think I heard, there's been a lot of development on the other side of 22, heading north. And that resulted in a lot of water flow down into the valley. And as a result of that, we ought to be putting that burden on the mountaintop, to pay a greater share of what's resulted. That's a different fight. So we'll see what fights we can move forward and stand a good chance of winning. But at this point, we're far more concerned about figuring out how to get people out from under whatever we can do with regards to the amount of flood insurance that we're all being asked to pay, those of us that live in flood zones. It looks like the questions are over. I did leave out one slide. All that really does, it's busy. It just shows the tax rate and the tax increases over the years netted out. For those of you interested, tomorrow there will certainly be hard copies of this available.
And on the website.
And it'll be on the website. For those of you, well, you got a whole big training room over here, so everybody get on the website tomorrow that's here. But it will be available. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. West. I think it's important for you to realize that the budget that was presented to you this evening, it does reflect an increase. We cannot do what we've always done and expect to get different results. And I have said to you for the last 12 months that I will bring competent individuals on staff who know what needs to be done and how to get it done. I've also talked to you about the need for us to market and promote this city so that we could attract businesses into this city to provide the relief that we all need as far as our taxes are concerned. And the way for us to do that is to bring professionals on staff. And one of the first things I did to that end was to bring on the Deputy City Administrator in charge of economic development. We also talked about marketing, promoting, rebranding the city. And some of the dollars for that were reflected in the budget. We know that we have suffered from a very negative image and reputation over these many years. And we have to reverse that. We have to change that. We cannot reverse that by doing nothing. And so this budget is a transparent document that shows you every dime that was included that we believe to be necessary in order for us to reverse the trends that were reflected in the numbers that you saw. And so with that, if you have any questions you want to pose to me directly, I'll be happy to answer those. And then at the end, we will go over to the municipal court for the council meeting that begins at 8 o'clock. But I'm all yours. If you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer.
Isn't it true that there was a title, Deputy City Administrator in charge of economic development, which was not, nobody was put in that position over the past 8 years, and it was left to a middle management person? And so this isn't really a new person, is it?
You're absolutely right. The title was there, it was not used, and I do believe that that is partly responsible for the lack of movement in economic development in the city. And so we made a conscious effort, and I communicated that to the public over the last 12 months. We made a conscious effort to fill that position so that we could take advantage of the expertise of this individual, Mr. Carlos Sanchez, to help us fill our economic development needs. But the position was there, it just wasn't filled. Yes?
Can you tell us what the chief of staff job functions are?
The chief of staff, and I communicated that to the council. There are a number of times, and I've talked about it publicly previously, there are a number of times when there are things that I as mayor have to do, meetings that I have to attend, and I am not able to be at those meetings, as well as constituent concerns that come to me. And the conduit between myself and many constituents, as well as the need for me to attend meetings, whether it's in Trenton or in another municipality, that I can't be there, that the chief of staff fills that role. And there are many other things that the chief of staff does in helping other department heads on a day-to-day basis. And so the position, though new to Plainfield, is not new to many municipalities. And it's an important position that does a great deal to support the office of the mayor and to support services that we provide to different citizens. And it helps us to keep a better partnership with our neighboring towns as well as with other elected officials around the state. So that position I view to be extremely important. I had a document that I read to the city council at the meeting that was held for the second reading of the ordinance, and I spelled it out very clearly. And I talked about the fact that sometimes you get calls from constituents who need access to information that they're not able to access themselves, and who, by me having this person this individual is able to get citizens in touch with the agencies, with the other elected officials, with individuals who can provide them with the services and the assistance that they need. And so, sometimes you may need to get in touch with Senator Menendez's office or some other elected official, and you don't know how to do that. You might need to get in touch with Immigration and Naturalization Services. Many people in the city have that need, and they don't know how to do that. My chief of staff facilitates all of that on my behalf. Are there any other questions?
When you were over at West not so long ago, you talked about many things about this blue ribbon committee, that's being appointed, I guess almost 10 PhDs. I think other than any other people, other than PhDs on this new, blue ribbon committee, the task force, I think the only people that, one PhD, were Gloria Taylor, the former mayor of Plainfield's wife, and, Joy Mills. I was wondering, what indicators do you have that maybe some community people had any background or knowledge about our city of Plainfield? Having been a lifelong resident, it seems as though what your research indicates is that when Plainfield was an all-American city in 1976, it seems as though some of Mayor Paul O'Keefe's ideas, I think that you're trying to highlight on, so again, we can become an all-American city. I do not see Plainfield in 100% decline. So at the end that you talked about what you're ready to do for the haves, what are you trying to do to help the have-nots? Many people were homeowners in this city, but many people migrated into the city of Plainfield that because of certain things that happened, they're no longer homeowners and able to put into the system what they did when they were much younger. What is your focus for the seniors in the city of Plainfield?
The first part of your question has to do with the education task force that I created back in May of 2013, which is made up of about 11 or so individuals with backgrounds in education. And all of these individuals have met over the last several months, and I expect to get a report from this education task force by the end of this month. And the purpose of that task force, I do believe that we all are in agreement that we have challenges with our educational system here in the city of Plainfield. And I wanted to take advantage of those individuals from academia who have the background, whether they were former principals, whether they're PhDs, but these are all individuals who have worked in education. And so I appointed this commission, and this came about as a result of a couple of meetings I had with the former governor, McGreevy, who's also a member of that task force. And so I expect a report from that task force sometime in the not too distant future. Our seniors need services. Our seniors that are still in their homes, they need relief. And the way for us to do that is to bring businesses in the city of Plainfield. We cannot provide property tax relief to anyone unless we could attract businesses into the city. And to that end, I brought on or filled the position of Deputy City Administrator in charge of economic development. To that end, I hired a public information officer who has sole responsibility for all of the communications of the city, and who will be working on putting together that marketing plan that we would use both in the print media and in the electronic media to market the city of Plainfield beyond its borders across the United States, to find people with investment dollars to come into the city so that we could see businesses rising to allow us to provide the tax relief that we need in the city of Plainfield. I have also been focusing on public safety. Our seniors need to feel safe in their homes. They need to feel safe as they walk in the streets. Not only our seniors, but all of the people in the city of Plainfield. And so we are investing in putting dollars or more dollars in public safety. There will be cameras that will be stationed across the city. We are focusing on our youth. We're going to put more of our youth to work. These are all of the things that this administration is working on, and you will see the results of the investment that we are making in the city. Some people see it as a cost. I see it as an investment. We cannot attract businesses to this city unless we create a more safer environment for all of the people here, and to send a message to those who will come in that we are open for business so they can come and invest, and you as seniors and other homeowners can get the relief that you seek, that you need, and that you deserve. Go ahead.
One last thing I just want to say to all you gentlemen out there, but when you go to the council meeting, just have a big argument. There's people on the council that don't want to change. And I want to see you guys, see if you can get up there and change it. That's been the fourth of Plainfield. There's people on there who always say no to it. These are all new now. Be strong enough that we can change that system and get this city to come up. But some of them will never say yes to anything. They completely say no to it. And that's what I think. I see it on television. So that's where the change is going to like to come. Because the council is the one that stops a lot of things. Some people call names that stop things from happening. And I like to see the difference. And I like to see you bring about that change.
And to all of you in this audience, that change cannot come about without you. That change cannot come about by my administration doing nothing. It cannot happen by us maintaining the status quo. We have got to invest in change. And there will be critics, but I will not be the mayor of this city and do nothing and expect to give you the results that you elected me to give to you. And so I ask you for your support. I ask you for your understanding. I ask you to recognize the need for us to invest in the city. I have a very talented group of individuals that are working for you every day. I ask you for your support, and we will deliver the change that you elected me to deliver. Unless there are any other questions, are there? I'll take.
I have a question, I don't know, it's not pertaining to the budget, but you're talking about a safer town. Okay, where I live at on West Fifth Street, it's like it's a raceway. The people and the police officers, when they don't have their lights on, they're still speeding down the street. Where the cars are parked at on Fifth Street is on the, if you're coming from Plainfield Avenue, it's on your left-hand side. So when you come up New Street, you can't see past those cars, and it's very dangerous. And the same thing on 4th Street, when you come up 4th and New, you can't see coming down from by Central Avenue because the cars are parked on that side, and it's, I mean, they're racing down the street. I can see if they had their lights on, going on a call, but I've had it where I've tried to cross the street and had a policeman blow his horn for me to wait, and I was on the corner.
Well, what I'll say to you is this. Those cars that you're talking about that are parked too close to the corners, I want a zero tolerance policy. It is my expectation that our police director, who's our public safety director, that he understands my charge in terms of a zero tolerance policy. Because too many accidents are caused when vehicles are parked so close to the corner and you can't see out. But in terms of your comment about you being at a certain position in the car I'm coming by, our officers each and every day have to respond to emergencies. And although a light may not be flashing or siren blowing, it doesn't mean that they're not going someplace where they need to get to. I would hope that they would utilize their emergency equipment when they need to. But your safety is our primary goal.
It's not that the cars are parked too close to the corner, it's just that the way they're parked, you had to come out into Fifth Street in order to see around, because they're parked. It's like a blind when you're coming up Fifth Street. I mean, it's very dangerous.
I will ask our staff to take a look at that, Fifth and New Street. Yes, Mr. Amahamas.
Yes, good evening. My concern is in the light of some of the things that you mentioned about attractive business, not doing things like we used to do in the city of Plainfield, and that if we continue to do the same thing, expect different results, it won't happen. We need to make some sacrifices. Nevertheless, like Ms. Lightout, I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Plainfield, like many city people. You know, we're very concerned about investing in the have-nots in the city of Plainfield. The vast majority of the population here that has been here all their life, they are the have-nots. It is very understandable that we need business. We need big business in the city of Plainfield. We need ratables. We need to be able to bring the taxes down. But not at the expense of the people, because we're pushing our population out of here. What has your administration, have your administration considered working with the council to create or establish policies in the city of Plainfield that will employ its residents when the construction for this business comes in? Our young people need employment. In order to change young people's quality of life, in order to change the quality of life in the city of Plainfield, in order to bring crime down, it's just not about putting police on the street. It's not just about putting a whole lot of money in law enforcement. It's about giving people the opportunity to care for themselves, instead of bringing them off the corner. But we're not employing our residents. Other cities like Boston, for example, they have employment policy, resident policies, where the percentage of the population or the contracts that come into that city goes to the residents in that city. They have pilot project programs, apprenticeship programs that goes to the young people in that city. I worked in construction for many years. Those jobs pay from $18 to $30-something an hour. Laying bricks, pouring concrete, the whole 9 yards. But we need the administration to look to, if we have not considered, to please look to in the future, in the very near future. We're looking to invest in our community, and for this growth, look to invest in our young people in this community right here. We don't need to keep bringing people from the outside to replace people that are here. We need to help fix the people that are here. Thank you so very much.
I should tell you, Mr. Muhammad, that we did not bring anyone in that replaced anyone that was here. I should also tell you that we have inserted into this budget more funding to put more of our young people to work. I should tell you that I've had conversations with our school superintendents about partnerships where I will be providing training, the city, for our young people. I have spoken about the Mayor's Office of Employment and Training, which is how we're going to develop our young people and expose them to opportunities. So we are doing things that are aimed at addressing some of the social issues that you know exist here in the city. We are not turning a blind eye to anything. And so our people are of paramount importance to us. And I just want you to know that. And no one should take anything for granted. No one should be of the belief that we are not doing things in the 79 days that I've been in office. All of 79 days. I don't want you to think that there is a panacea to any of the challenges that we face. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's a process, it's not anything. And we will get the job done. One more question over here.
Another thing I'd like to point out to back up what Mr. Muhammad said, when I was a student in Plainfield High School, we used to picket downtown Plainfield because the whites were not hiring us to work in stores. There's been a reversal of that. And the Latinos that have these stores in downtown Plainfield are not hiring our children. And that needs to change, and that needs to change immediately. Otherwise, I will actually help to organize some boycotts of downtown Plainfield.
All right, I'll help you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all of you for coming out. This is one of the many community forums that the administration will be presenting, and I hope that we can have your feedback, and we want to hear from you. So please, let us hear from you. Thank you so very much. Have a good evening.